Welcome back. You're here with Goldberg. Today we're going to be talking about traditional Islamic marriage as the claimed solution for some guys who are not happy with the state of affairs of dating and whatnot. Now, this is going to be an extremely positive video. I know the sycophants, they get their feelings hurt, so we have to make it extraordinarily positive, but also tell them what they have to do if they want this to be, in some sense, successful for themselves. I will just start by noting probably the vast majority of Muslims are just absolute hypocrites and liars, which is one of the reasons you have to be very cautious trying to listen to anything they say in relation to their religion. In fact, I would wager that most Muslims, in particular Muslim men, their concept of what Islam means is always based upon an attempt to shill or gain the acceptance of Western cream cheese types. So, if you remember in the early 2000s, the way to be a hip Muslim is if you were a pro-Western liberal reformer who supported feminism and gay rights. Then you would be welcomed into the fold. And then around about 2019, some folks in the manosphere started saying Islam is right about women, i.e., they have to be kept under control. And so all these Muslim cells started claiming, yeah, we're right about women. It's like, do you even follow your own religion? Do you even know the history? I think the answer is no for most of them, to be perfectly honest. We just have to make that clear. There is this perception in the West that Islam has been, always will be, extraordinarily traditionalist and conservative. This is going to be true in some parts. Obviously, if you go to Turkey and you're in Istanbul, it's going to be different from way out in the Boonjies. But even with that, historically speaking, Islam is not as rigid as some people might believe. Saudi Arabia, of course, has the Wahhabi system overlaid on society, but when you start investigating writers from that part of the world, you realize what's in fact going on. Hardworking Muslim men who are engineers, construction managers, businessmen, getting cucked by their traditional feminine wives who stay at home all day and just are religious and always pray to Allah. There's also a substantial homosexual component, and it's not outwardly celebrated, but because of the manner in which they segregate the genders, it does occur. You can find some linkages with African Americans because it's claimed a very large percent, in fact, perhaps the highest percent proportionally of that population is homosexual, but it's not welcomed. And so people are less likely to think of a black guy being gay or an Arab cell being gay, but it does occur. You have a lot of backing up behind the scenes. You have historically butthurt behavior. Then, under the Qajar dynasty, this is already in Iran, well post the arrival of Islam, you have an interesting state of affairs because it's been claimed the reason why monogamous marriage actually came to the forefront, it was being pushed by women. And they said they were prepared to give up some of their freedoms and ability to pursue education because they were tired of their husbands cheating on them, not just with other hijabis, but also with what were called gilmans, essentially a young male with no facial hair, highly prized. And some scholars have claimed that, in fact, the hostility towards homosexuality in Islamic cultures was more an import from Europe. So once again, you see Muslims trying to simp for cream cheese, European types, instead of actually having this as their base system of belief. And I'm not trying to tell you all Muslims there were gay, but it's just to comprehend the fact it's not this song and dance trad culture that a lot of people want to believe. Even back in the day, even when you have a lot less technology, you did have your share of, whether you want to call it progressive social liberalism or degeneracy. That's going to rely on the position where you stand. So this brings me to an argument you've probably come across at some point in the manosphere where they go, get that trad girl, but don't bring her to the West because she'll become a feminist, hypergamous, she'll cheat on you. And the more you stop and think, it seems highly impractical and almost a massively elevated degree of simping. In the sense that a dude who wants to get his rocks off overseas is understandable, but when you say, I'm going to uproot my life, change my job, move to a country where I don't speak the language potentially, I have no blood relatives, nothing really in common with the people, I'm never going to fit in like a native will, And I'm doing this out of one desperate attempt that this particular girl is not going to turn on me. It seems at that point, why not just get married in the West and have an ironclad prenup and make sure all your income goes into the right account so she can't claim it's shared? Otherwise, let's say you do this stuff, but if a woman is only trad or religious to the degree that she's coerced by culture or the law, then you're basically living with this repressed feminist who may very well just have disdain for you, may secretly hate you. I mean, me personally, I don't want to be with a woman who doesn't want to be with me. It strikes me as kind of a, why would you do that? And remember, the laws might say it's harder to get divorced or whatnot. Still, she can psychologically and emotionally abuse you. She can try to gaslight you, make you think that reality isn't actually there. She can, you say, oh, but Islam says she has to service her husband. Yeah, but she could just be a dead fish. She can communicate in as many ways as possible that she does not want to be around you. And so you might think you've won because you're still married and she can't divorce you, but you're actually living with this state of misery. It just reminds me of the bald cell boomers in the West who run YouTube channels and they'll talk about how you need to be conservative and get married to a good Christian girl. And these guys themselves are either divorced or they're in a dead bedroom relationship, but they think the fact they're still married is like this status symbol which gives them wisdom for younger men, when in truth, they just could never summon up the courage to say, I either don't want to be married or I should end this because there's really nothing there. So, yeah, I'm very skeptical of that whole idea. You got to move overseas, change everything just for this one woman, hoping she's not going to become a feminist and cheat on you. It just seems at that point you probably already lost the chess match before you began. In relation specifically to guys who think I'm going to go with a Muslim woman, I'm going to go with a hijabi or a hosari, or I'm going to get a traditional Christian woman, and that's going to be the solution. Just understand when we say relationships are transactional, it's not a negative. It's just trying to point out you're either trading looks, your ability to give her tingles, or resources, emotional stability, whatever it might be. And you can't just escape from that because you say, oh, well, I'm a white guy. I grew a beard and I'm trad, therefore, not quite. So, knew this kid, early 20s. He's one of those big into the manosphere stuff. I guess he felt that Catholicism and Orthodoxy weren't tradical enough, so he actually became a Muslim. And he got in contact with a family trying to find himself a good girl trad wife. So the parents say, all right, this might work. Now, how much money do you make? And I don't think he grosses more than 50 or 60K, if that's because one of those. Just go into like not even trades, just do like manual labor because it's better than being in a white collar position. And they said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We are going to expect something more. And this is the truth. Muslim societies, despite the fact that Muslims are going to come to the comment section and lie, they'll say, oh, well, Islam is all about the poor and zakat and giving alms. I did the research some years back. I don't know the current figures, but when I compared Muslim countries, proportionally speaking, how much they give to charity versus Western, irreligious, secular, liberal, Westerners blow them out of the water because a lot of Muslim countries are poor. They're run by oligarchies. They are very much about trying to get a better deal however you can. So the idea that these trad women, all they want is, oh, I just want to live in your ratty apartment or trailer park or your off the grid camper with a composting toilet. No, they're going to expect a heck of a lot more. And you need to be able to provide that. You need to be a big baller. In fact, I think there is the whole concept of mahir in Islam, where essentially the husband is supposed to adequately support the wife. And when we say adequately, reality means you need to make good money, especially if you're going to have her in the West or even in those countries. They don't want to live in squalor. And the money that she might have from her parents or if she has a job is not necessarily to be used for the family. It is her own money. So that's another factor. Well, it has to be 50-50. No, you're going to have to be the beta bucks. You're going to have to take care of her. That's what a traditional woman typically is going to expect. She might stay home, cook and clean, take care of kids, and you're going to be giving her a certain degree of life that she expects. She's going to want to live in a a townhouse or nice residential place in the suburbs, drive maybe a G Wagon, Porsche Cayenne, or a Land Rover, send the kids to private school, go on vacations. She doesn't want to just be, like I said, in the sticks because you heard from a man you're Spherian, oh, that's really good. So you need to be going to preferably a white collar career or have a very successful company. It's not enough to say, I'm just working as a tradesman making like 25, 30 bucks an hour. That's not going to cut it for most Muslim, Hindu, or even, like I said, a lot of Christian women from these cultures. They're going to want high end. And if you can't provide that, they're going to be an issue. Just like if you meet one of them in the West who's sort of conservative but has a career and they want to have babies, you need to make enough money to where you can maintain her lifestyle once she stops being employed. Just understand this is how the exchange goes. It's not just, oh, because I pray so much and I'm against degeneracy that women are obsessed with it. And that's not really how it functions, not with most cultures, because they want to see that the daughter is going to be well taken care of as she wants to have a good life. And no doubt we're going to have a lot of maboobs coming in the comments section saying, no, Goldberg, you're wrong. Islam says do not marry a barakah, a narcissistic woman. Do not marry a anyana, a complainer. Do not marry a hidakah, a gold digger, a divorce-minded woman. This is all fine and dandy, but it's not how the world functions. These precious traditional Islamic women, they are going to act a certain way. First of all, if they're actually devout, we go back to that same point. If they're only traditional because of the environment they're in, being coerced or threatened, then they're probably not all that traditional. It's like you as a Muslim guy saying that you're so devout and pious, and then some drunk girl starts talking to you, so you have sex with her. Well, I guess you're kind of a hypocrite. Again, a lot of these people, they're not consistent with any of their beliefs or their moral values. The real world holds you are going to, if you want a traditional wife, especially Muslim, Hindu, or like I said, certain Christians, you have to bring home the bacon and feed it to her. Yeah, you didn't see that coming now, did you? And I've seen real life examples of this. Let's start outside of Islam. I talked about that brother that he's busting his ass and his wife is withdrawing from him sexually nonetheless. People got offended. So some other like sissy black manosphereans got offended that I mentioned that. I don't even know why. It's like they don't believe that's possible. Another guy I know, he's what you call an oofy doofy. His wife is fairly attractive, although she had to get some cosmetic things fixed well after they were married. So that kind of diminished her value. But they actually met through a legit cult. And I say it's a cult because it was investigated for abuse. And he's the same, busting his ass 80 hours a week. He has a house he can't afford. He's always trying to give her the high life, taking her on vacations, sandals resort, that kind of thing, because that's what a traditional guy, and he's always quoting the Bible and talking about trad marriage, and he's there busting his ass as a slave to ensure that she does not feel he's slacking or he doesn't care about her anymore. So just to put that in perspective, and it's not saying these are bad people per se, it's just that they have to exchange something to keep that woman in their life. Then I also know a guy, he's a Karachi cell. You know how like Brother Amr talks about in his mosque, you have these Karachi cells, Arab cells, working as engineers, IT, doctors, lawyers, busting out the hours to support a 3 or 4 out of 10 who doesn't actually care for them much. This dude, in this case, he is a Karachi cell. If he was not in the Islamic religion, he would probably be an incel or he'd have to do pay for play. And he's got a wife, he's married, but he makes about 200K a year. He's always working, always trying to bring home extra money to make sure that she remains satisfied. So that's going to be how they look at it. You can say you want, I'm trad, I've got my beard, but you have to provide something. There's a very interesting story, mind you. It shows how black pill Islam is. I believe it came from Al Azma, and he was relaying this tale of a very pretty girl. She was married to an ugly guy, oofy doofy type. And people came up to her and said, why would you choose a man like that? You know, he's pretty unattractive. She becomes extremely offended. She says, how dare you ask me such a question? Maybe it is Allah punishing me for my sins. Do you hear that? She didn't say Allah sent this good boy, hardworking beta buxer. No, Allah was punishing me for my sins by giving me an ugly husband. So if she's going to tolerate a guy who she doesn't think is that attractive or he's average, whatever, you're going to need a little bit more than just, oh, I'm trad.